Hi, I'm Jim Brulé. You've been seeing me now since Halloween, actually, on this series, Stories for Healing. And I have to tell you, I'm going to take my turn today and tell you a story. But I also want to reflect a little bit on what these last several months have meant and what I think the future might hold for us a little bit. You know, I never thought when I started this out that this would last this long. And as I've been saying in the recent weeks, it's both encouraging and discouraging that it's still so needed. But I'd rather be providing what's needed than not. And I want to thank you all for your participation in this, whether you've been one of the storytellers or one of the many story listeners. And you know we keep this completely outside of any commercial endeavor. Nobody's getting paid for this. Nobody's being promoted beyond their website. And to the extent that that's possible, I will certainly continue to do that. I will say at this one point, and you'll see it come across the bottom now, if you would like to give a tip to help keep this going, because it does actually cost me money to provide all this, it would be nice. But again, whether you do or you don't, this will continue. So let me start with a story and then reflect a little more. And this is, as you might expect, a story from the Jewish tradition. It seems there once was a man, let's call him Menachem. He was a person like anyone else, imperfect, flawed, but with a desire to lead a better life. And so he decided to, first of all, try and find out what that most important thing to be searching for would be, and then search for it. And there's a long, long story of how he came to his conclusion, but for now, let's just let it suffice to say that he chose this one verse from the Torah, from the Hebrew scriptures. 3 words. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. You'll recognize that the first 2 repeat. That's the word for justice, tzedek. And tirdof, well, it means to pursue. And so the meaning of this phrase generally is justice, justice you shall pursue. And it means it in a way that doesn't mean when you happen to come across a circumstance which requires justice, be just. But in fact, it means to pursue it. Even if everything around you seems fine, go find the injustice in the world and pursue it. Lots of reasons why that first word might be doubled. In this case, it adopts the understanding that one ought to pursue that pursuit of justice in a just manner. Okay. So Menachem, here he goes. He's going to head out into the world pursuing the notion of justice. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. Pursue it. And so he would go from place to place. And he would encounter some injustice, and he would try and see that justice was done. But he knew that wasn't entirely it, that he was trying to understand what was justice actually. Did it mean that those who were the wrongdoers were simply punished? That didn't seem to be entirely correct. That's just punishment. It's not justice. Did it mean that one should be overflowing with mercy? Well, no. Then where is the justice there? And so he traveled from place to place to place. Finally, despairing of finding any answer, he made his way out into the woods. He thought, well, maybe there's some more natural source of justice that I can learn about. And so he traveled for day after day, for week after week, through the countryside, through mountains, till he finally came to a very, very thick forest. And something inspired him to travel down this trail. And he walked for day after day until he saw as evening came, a light glowing in the distance. He headed in that direction, and as he got closer, he realized that it was a house. And it was a light. Not the house itself, but there were windows here, there, and everywhere, and out of each one were shining. It was candlelight. There must be 1,000 candles inside, he thought. He went up to the door and went to knock on it. But as he knocked, it opened. He walked in. And there, inside, were rows after rows after rows of candles stacked up. Now, candles in the sense of the old oil candles. You know, the little jar of oil that has a wick coming out of it and it's lit. And he could see that some of the jars that held the oil were quite fine, and some of them were quite simple. Some of the oil in some of the jars was quite full, and in the others it was nearly empty. But it was room after room after room of light after light after light. At first he thought he might count them, but he gave up that. The numbers were too spectacular. And as he turned and twisted from room after room, he found himself in a little room. Still lots of these lights everywhere. And as he stood gazing at the lights, he sensed a presence behind him. He turned around, and sure enough, there was this old man. He said, "Menachem, you finally arrived." Menachem said, "Do I know you?" "Not yet," the voice answered. "And we'll see if you do." "What is this place?" Menachem asked. I couldn't have imagined such a place. All these candles. It is amazing, isn't it? Well, what are they? Why are they all here? These are the souls of every person on earth. The souls? Yes. Yes. So long as they burn, that soul is in the body. And when the candle goes out and the smoke drifts upwards, the soul leaves the body. Well, why are some of these in fine holders and others in simple pots? Our bodies are sometimes elegant and sometimes simple. Our lives are sometimes surrounded by elegance and sometimes by simplicity, but the oil within us and that flame, it's the same. Menachem said, "Well, so the ones that are lower in oil, yes, they're closer to their end." "Oh. And might I ask, could I see mine?" "Of course you could. I was hoping you'd ask," the man said. And he pointed to one of the shelves, right there in that very room. He said, "There's yours, over there." And with that, the man turned and left as quietly as he had arrived, leaving Menachem in the room by himself. Menachem, of course, went over to his own light, and he looked in, and to his dismay, it was nearly empty. The one next to his was almost completely full. Well, he couldn't imagine having discovered all this and then have his life end so quickly. So he reached for the other one, the one next to him, the one filled with oil. And just as he placed his hand on it, he felt an icy cold grip on his wrist. And the man was there again. Menachem, I had such great hopes for you. Menachem looked at him and said, but... And suddenly this grip was released. And the candles were all gone. The house was gone. He was just standing in a small clearing in a deep, dark forest. Tzedek, Tirdov. Pursue justice, and pursue it justly. You know, I'm not the preachy type, but we've just been through a very difficult year, where some of us have simply hunkered down and felt the weight of the year. And others have grown angry and frustrated. Said, well, I'll look out for myself. And still others have maybe poured a little of that oil from their lamp to another's. We won't find justice by thinking only of ourselves. We won't make this world a better place by hunkering down and just being safe. We have to pursue justice. We have to pursue a better life. We have to find a way to do that even as we're hemmed in by this virus. Because, oh my dear friends, as much as I wish that the change of a date on a calendar would change the world, you and I both know it won't. It's only what's in our hearts and the actions to which we put what's there that can really change the world. But it can be changed. It can be changed. I believe that. I know that. And so as dark as it has become and as frightening and stressful and all those other things, I do believe we can make this a better world. The consequences of our inaction or our selfish action are clear. There's so much at stake. Not all stories end with a happy ending. Let's make our story, the story for each of us and the story for this world, one that moves back toward the light, which we get by pursuing justice justly. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you next time.